Today we're going to go over some of the terms and the characteristics we will be going over as we study the Iliad. We will also take a look at these whenever we read the Aeneid afterwards. Two of the earliest examples of oral tradition are the Iliad and the Odyssey. These tales were well known and passed down and around to share culture and history while entertaining the masses. Instead of writing them down first and then sharing, they were spread by word of mouth and performed by poets also known as bards. Years later, the best version was written down. These stories were long and intricate, so to make it easier to memorize, they were broken down into segments. Think of these like chapters in a novel. But each of these had a mini conclusion, so the bard could take a rest, and the audience would still be satisfied. Another trick was keeping a steady rhythm. Have you ever noticed it's easier to remember song lyrics than a list of items? That's because the rhythm and rhyme creates a stronger memory aid. Just like today, technology advanced, so these popular stories with memory aids were written down. Now these stories didn't have to be memorized. It is believed the word epic derives from the Greek word epos, meaning word, utterance, or poetic utterance. So an epic is a narrative poem that tells a story of a great cultural hero and his exploits. For example, the Iliad tells of Achilles and how his anger affected the fighting in the Trojan War. Now, there are two types of epics, folk and literary. Folk epics originated through oral tradition, with stories being passed down through word of mouth. These usually have anonymous or shadowy authors, like Homer, because we don't know all the details of their ancient origin. The other type is literary, like Virgil's The Aeneid, in which the narrative is written down by one author. Archetypes are characters or events or themes that are universal. They repeat throughout time and culture as patterns or models. For example, we all experience coming of age, so we often see this as a theme in literature. This is not to be confused with the stereotype, though, which is an oversimplified representation, usually of a negative connotation, like a dumb blonde or all women are terrible drivers. Other archetypal examples include the journey or hero's quest, the hero and villain, the mentor or sage, the caregiver, the rebel, the outcast, and the ruler who wants absolute power. We will see a lot of these when we study the Iliad. Traits most epics have are called epic conventions. These characteristics help to make epics structurally similar. The ones we will study in the Iliad and Aeneid are as follows. In medias res, invocation to amuse, statement of theme, long formal speeches, divine intervention, stock epithets, foreshadowing or omens, epic similes, epic hero who idolizes the cultural values and makes a hero's oath, and the arming of the warrior or hero. Epics will typically begin with these three conventions: in medias res, invocation to amuse, and statement of theme. In medias res is simply defined as in the middle of the action, meaning the story doesn't start at the beginning. Additionally, the poet will start with an invocation to amuse in which he asks for help in telling the story. Think of it as divine inspiration. Furthermore, a thematic statement is given at the beginning since the story is complex and long. Instead of trying to figure it out on your own, the poet tells you right away. That way, the audience knows what the story is about and can pay more attention to the way it is being presented instead. Long formal speeches are just that, long formal speeches. You can compare them to dramatic monologues. Since they originally had to be recited, it makes sense to have lengthy speeches instead of short dialogue. You know, because they were easier to memorize. It may seem like these elaborate monologues occur at inappropriate times, like in battle or in meetings, but they help drive the plot and portray characters. Another characteristic of epics is divine intervention, which is when the gods interfere in mortal lives. The divine beings choose a side in each conflict, so the involvement can either help or hinder a character. Epics also have stock epithets, or repetitive descriptive names or phrases for nouns. Not only do these add more detail, but they force us to read closely so we know what's going on with whom. Some examples are the Greeks are referred to as Achaeans, or Argives, or Danaans, and our hero is called swift-footed Achilles, or Achilles of the swift foot, emphasizing his speed and Homer's poetic style. There's also foreshadowing, a term I'm sure you're familiar with, but just in case, we'll review it. It's when signs or omens suggest future events, often warning the hero of something. Another term I bet you know is a simile, a comparison of two unlike things using the words like, as, or even sometimes than. However, in an epic, these comparisons are more complex and drawn out in explanation, expanding over several lines in text. The epic hero is the main character or protagonist of the epic poem. In ancient epics, he's always male. He's larger than life in the sense that he usually has godlike characteristics such as superhuman strength or speed. In addition, the epic hero embodies his culture's values like bravery or wisdom, but he also has flaws or faults that are seen as lessons the audience should pick up on. Another aspect of the epic hero is his oath, a promise of some sort he makes throughout his journey. Furthermore, as you'll see in the Iliad, the hero's or warrior's armor and weapons are paid special attention to, often because they are created by or given from the gods. Hopefully you've taken detailed notes so you can study, but you can always watch this again if you need to. You will be required to understand these terms and apply them in this unit.